Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. I'm so excited to start off a new month. It is April 1st. April 1st. I know I'm not as good at it as Mark is, but he's just so dang cute when he points at the date, but you're going to have to just deal with me. This is how it is now. I'll make sure when he comes for guest speaking that he will come and show you the date. But anyways, April is all about our fae and hidden worlds. So today we kick off the monthly archetype of the Veil Walker. So this has a lot of really fun and interesting things as spring finally starts to come forward and fully embrace creation and new beginnings. And today, with all of that in mind, a couple other things that April represents is crossing thresholds, the unseen world, glamour and illusion, spirit bargains, lost time, enchantments, hidden helpers, and returning changed. So last month, we had the tested hero, and this time we are going into the fae and hidden worlds. A lot of them are a lot of the lighthearted kind of stories, the little fairy tale beings and that kind of stuff, more so than all of the trials and tribulations that our last month had. Will we still see stuff? Yes, we will. We will also see the dangers of getting lost in the illusions and stuff. A big thing with this month, as well as in October, is that I believe that there are several moments where we talk about plant medicine within the stories. As we know, plant medicine, psychedelics, psilocybin, that stuff was being used in ancient civilizations. There were things growing and oftentimes having these visions, having, lost time or seeing all of this stuff in front of us when we went through the forest. Some of that was a little bit of the planty medicine helping us along. But anyways, that's not what it's all about. And what's even more interesting is when there's nothing in our systems and we still receive these messages and see these people. But with that and the new beginnings, I got a little bit excited. I'm going to start talking about some of the stuff I'm doing at home. But right now, a current project that I'm working on is I got this engraving kit from my parents for Christmas. And of course, it's April, and now I'm finally using it, more. But I decided to take this teapot set. So I got this teapot from my mom. It's actually from Japan. And I decided that I was going to use these as little pots. So as you can see, I'm drilling a hole. It takes a lot of time and patience to drill through stuff like this. It's my first time doing anything like this. This is actually my first cup ever drilling something like that in it. It's just for a drainage hole. But I'm pretty excited. I'm going to establish a little bit of a wonky kind of teacup thing with plants and little succulents in it. And I plan on taking the succulents that Mark got. We got from the vets here at our local Stepto vet for when Boomer passed away. That was Mark's chocolate lab that he had had for a long time. But we got a succulent. We're going to take pieces and put them in each of these. I'm going to figure out how to get the big teacup on top. We're going to use copper wire and possibly a copper rod. But the tall teacup on top is going to kind of flow out and hold the larger succulent, the mama succulent, up in it while the other pieces kind of flow down. I haven't explained this to Mark yet, so I'm pretty excited to share that with him. I have 2 out of my 6 cups have the drainage hole that we're going to run some of that copper through and I'm starting on the 3rd one. So anyways, that's a little springtime fun that we have going on. I'm also taking the music box that I used to have and I hollowed it out and painted it with some wood protectant, waterproof wood protectant kind of stuff. And that's actually going to be turned into a flower pot as well. As you can see, I have a problem. A long time ago, I was told by my mother, if there isn't any more space on the bookshelf, you can't buy any more books, right? So I bought more bookshelves. I bought larger bookshelves naturally, rationally, right? I know I don't want to live in the fact that I'm a genius, but I do what I can. And the second thing that I did and that I kind of learned was I have a plant problem. And just like the running out of room on the bookshelf, I'm running out of pots to put the plants in. So instead of continuously buying more and more because this is who I am, I decided to start taking things from around the house that were no longer functioning correctly or that meant something to me, but I didn't really have anything to do with them. I wanted to bring them back to life. Obviously, I got this Japanese tea set from my mom. I got the music box from a friend in high school. And I just wanted to kind of honor those memories. So, yeah, with this creation and new becoming, I'm trying out a lot more of my crafting, as you can see. I hurt myself. Surprisingly, this was taking the lid off of the can earlier. Wasn't from the drill bit or the saw or the hammer or anything of the sorts. So Mark will have fun when he gets home and sees all these crafts started. Anyways, we're here for Folklore and Flourish, Jane. Pay attention. So now we know what April is. We are walking into the Walker archetype, and week 1 is the doorway. So as we walk through the doorway of these fae and hidden worlds, we are approached right away with the opening. We are going to see the opening through 4 different stories today. It's going to be through Irish, Japanese, Egyptian, and Mayan folklore today. And we're going to think about the theme of how the world splits open. So enjoy these 4 stories, and we'll see you right after this. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. Tir na Nog, the land beyond time. In the mythological traditions of Ireland, particularly within the Fenian cycle, the story of Tir na Nog, meaning land of the young, presents one of the clearest expressions of the Celtic otherworld, as a realm that exists parallel to, yet distinctly separate from, the human world, accessible only through specific moments of invitation or alignment. And it is through this threshold that the hero, Ashin, son of the legendary warrior Fionn mac Cool, is taken. The story begins when Neve, a woman of the Eshi, the supernatural beings associated with the She mounds in the unseen world, arrives upon the shores of Ireland riding a white horse, a common symbolic marker of liminality and passage between realms, and invites Ashin to accompany her to Tir na Nog, describing it not as a distant place, but as a realm that exists just beyond ordinary perception, where aging does not occur, sorrow is absent, and time does not move as it does in the mortal world. Ashin accepts and crosses into the realm not through a dramatic portal, but through a quiet transition, riding across the sea, which in Celtic tradition often represents a boundary between worlds rather than a geographical distance. And upon arriving, he experiences what appears to be a long and fulfilling life, participating in hunts, feasts, and companionship, all while remaining unchanged in body and spirit. As time in Tir na Nog flows differently, existing outside the linear progression known to humans. However, after what feels to him like only a few years, Ashin begins to feel a pull towards Ireland, a longing that reflects the enduring connection between the mortal world and the other world. And despite Neve's warning that returning would carry consequences, she allows him to go, giving him strict instructions not to touch the ground upon his return, emphasizing the delicate boundary between the two realms. When Ashin arrives back in Ireland, he discovers that hundreds of years have passed. His people are gone, in the world has changed beyond recognition, revealing that while he experienced only a short time, the mortal world continued without pause. When he attempts to assist a group of men by lifting a stone, he falls from the horse, touches the earth, and is immediately overcome by the weight of the centuries that have been held at bay, aging instantly and losing his connection to Tir na Nog forever. This story serves not only as a narrative of enchantment, but as a reflection of the Celtic understanding that the other world is not separate in distance, but in state of being, that it exists alongside the human world, accessible through specific conditions, yet governed by entirely different laws, particularly in relation to time, and that crossing into such a realm is not without consequence, as the return requires reconciliation between two incompatible realities, demonstrating that the boundary between worlds is not fixed, but is absolute, once crossed in full awareness. Story 2, Yomi, the Separation of Worlds. Within the foundational texts of Japanese mythology, particularly the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, the story of Yomi, the land of the dead, establishes one of the earliest and most significant distinctions between the realm of the living and the realm of the unseen. And it is through the divine figures, Izanagi and Izanami, that the boundary is first crossed and permanently sealed. After the creation of the islands of Japan and many of the kami, or divine spirits, Izanami dies giving birth to the fire deity, Kagutsuchi, and upon her death she descends into Yomi, a realm not of punishment, but of irreversible transition, where those who enter are bound by its laws, and Izanagi, overcome with grief and unwilling to accept the separation, chooses to follow her, descending into Yomi despite the understood danger of crossing into a realm from which return is uncertain. Upon entering, he finds a place devoid of light and vitality, often described as shadowed and still, where the presence of death is not violent but absolute, and he calls out to Izanami, who responds from within the darkness, informing him that she has already consumed the food of Yomi, an act that binds her to the realm and prevents her return. Yet she expresses a willingness to seek permission from the deities of Yomi to leave, instructing Izanagi not to look upon her during the process, establishing a condition that reflects the importance of restraint and respect when engaging with the unseen. However, as Izanagi waits, doubt and impatience begin to erode his resolve, and he ultimately violates her instruction by lighting a tooth of his comb as a torch, illuminating the darkness and revealing Izanami not as a living goddess he remembered, but as a body of decay, her form already claimed by death, with maggots and corruption marking her transformation. A revelation that is not merely horrifying, but symbolic of the irreversible nature of death and the incompatibility between the living and the dead. This act of looking, of forcing visibility upon what must remain unseen, breaks a boundary that had allowed even the possibility of negotiation. And Izanami, now aware of his betrayal, becomes enraged, sending the forces of Yomi, including the Yomotsu Shikaume, terrifying female spirits, to pursue him as he flees back toward the world of the living, sealing the passage behind him with a massive boulder once he escapes, effectively closing the threshold between the realms. In the final exchange between them, Izanami declares that she will take 1,000 lives each day in retaliation, to which Izanagi responds that he will ensure 1,500 are born daily, establishing the cycle of life and death as a direct consequence of this separation. And from this moment forward, the worlds of the living and the dead remain distinct, divided not by distance, but by an unbreakable boundary that was once crossed and cannot be crossed again without consequence. This story serves as a foundational explanation within Shinto belief for the nature of death, impurity, and ritual cleansing. Izanagi undergoes purification upon returning from Yomi, giving rise to further deities, including Amaterasu, and reinforces the understanding that the unseen world is not distant, but it is governed by laws that demand respect, and that the act of crossing into it, especially without adherence to those laws, results in permanent transformation, marking the moment when the world itself becomes divided into what is seen and what must remain unseen. Story 3, the Duat, the hidden passage of transformation. Within the religious and cosmological framework of ancient Egypt, the Duat represents not simply an underworld, but a complex and structured realm that exists alongside and beneath the visible world, serving as a domain through which both the sun god Ra and the souls of the deceased must travel. And its most detailed descriptions are preserved in funerary texts such as the pyramid texts, coffin texts, and later, the Book of the Dead, where it is depicted as a vast and layered landscape composed of gates, caverns, waterways, and regions inhabited by both protective and hostile entities, each requiring precise knowledge to navigate. Unlike later conceptions of the underworld as a place of punishment, the Duat is fundamentally a realm of transition and transformation, where the deceased undergo a process that determines their continuation in the afterlife. And central to this journey is a passage through a series of gates, each guarded by beings whose names must be spoken correctly, emphasizing the Egyptian belief that knowledge, particularly sacred knowledge, grants access and protection within the unseen world. Upon reaching the Hall of Ma'at, the heart of the deceased is weighed against the feather of Ma'at, representing truth, order, and cosmic balance. And this judgment is overseen by Osiris, the god of the afterlife, along with a tribunal of deities, while Anubis conducts the weighing, and Tot records the outcome, creating a system in which moral integrity directly determines one's fate beyond death. If the heart is found to be heavier than the feather, burdened by wrongdoing, it is devoured by Ammit, a composite creature part lion, hippopotamus, and crocodile, resulting in the complete cessation of the soul's existence, while a balanced heart allows the individual to pass into the field of wreaths, a perfected reflection of earthly life where one continues to exist in harmony. However, the Duat is not only traversed by the dead, as Ra himself journeys through it each night aboard his solar bark, accompanied by other deities, confronting the serpent, Apophis, a representation of chaos that seeks to halt the sun's cycle and plunge the world into disorder. And this nightly battle reinforces the idea that the continuation of life is not automatic, but maintained through ongoing passage through the unseen. The Duat therefore functions as both a testing ground and a necessary process, where boundaries between life, death, and rebirth are not fixed, but fluid, and where transformation is achieved through alignment with cosmic order rather than avoidance of the journey itself. This understanding reflects a worldview in which the unseen realm is not distant or abstract, but deeply integrated into existence, influencing the cycles of nature, morality, and time, where crossing into that realm is not considered an anomaly, but an expected and structured journey, governed by laws that must be understood and respected, demonstrating that the world does not end at what is visible, but continues into layers that are always present, though not always perceived. Story 4, Xibalba, the Trials of the Underworld. Within the sacred narrative of the Quiche Maya people, preserved in the Popol Vuh, the underworld known as Xibalba, meaning place of fear, exists not as a distant or abstract realm, but as a structured domain beneath the earth, accessible through caves, rivers, and symbolic descent. And it is ruled by the Council of Death Lords, including 1 death, Hun Ka-me, and 7 death, Vukub Ka-me, who do not merely punish those who enter, but subject them to a series of trials designed to test perception, awareness, and understanding of the unseen rules that govern their realm. The most well-known journey into Xibalba is undertaken by the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, who descended not by accident, but by summons, following in the path of their father, Hunahpu, who had previously been defeated and sacrificed by the lords of Xibalba, his head placed in a tree that would later play a role in the twins' own origin, establishing from the beginning that Xibalba is a place tied to cycles, lineage, and unresolved actions. Upon entering, the twins encounter immediate deception, as they are presented with figures meant to appear as the true rulers, but are in fact wooden effigies. By recognizing the illusion, they avoid humiliation, demonstrating that survival in Xibalba depends not on strength, but on discernment. And they are then subjected to a sequence of trials within various houses, each designed to exploit fear, darkness, or physical threat, including the House of Darkness, where no light is permitted, the House of Jaguars, filled with predatory beasts, the House of Bats, where the deadly Kamadzouts, a bat-like entity, resides, and the House of Cold, among others, each requiring the twins to adapt, strategize, and see beyond the immediate danger. Rather than confronting these trials directly, they employ intelligence and illusion of their own, using substitutes, timing, and misdirection to survive, revealing an understanding that the realm itself operates through layered realities, where appearances cannot be trusted. Eventually, the twins allow themselves to be sacrificed, entering death within the underworld itself. But through this act, they transform, returning into altered forms. First, as traveling performers who demonstrate resurrection through staged acts, and then revealing their true identities, ultimately defeating the lords of Xibalba not through force, but through mastery of the same illusions and cycles that define the realm, breaking the pattern that had previously claimed their father. Through their journey, Xibalba is revealed not simply as a place of fear, but as a domain of testing, where those who fail to perceive its nature are consumed, while those who understand it can move through it and emerge changed, carrying knowledge that bridges the worlds above and below. This story reflects a broader Mesoamerican understanding that the underworld is not separate from life, but an integral part of existence, connected through natural and spiritual pathways, and that crossing into it is not inherently destructive, but requires awareness of its structure and laws, demonstrating that the unseen world is not inaccessible, but it is governed by principles that must be recognized, as survival and transformation within it depend not on resisting what is encountered, but on understanding it fully. Hey everybody, welcome back in. Hope you enjoyed those 4 stories with the opening and the theme of how the world splits open. I just wanted to remind all of you, because I know there's a large number of you that just are listening to the podcast. You're not viewing the podcast, which is fine. No need for you to view it all the time. But I will say that there is a new image for every single day that incorporates little pieces of each story in it. And I mean, this was created by myself in December for each day. So you'll see kind of like a 4-card spread in the book that we're going to release for this. But there's a 4-picture spread, and it has the month. Well, it has a season. So it starts with spring, and then the month of April. Then we have the week's image. And then we have a final image, which is very specific to that day. Obviously, I like card reading, and I think that everything is symbolic and everything can be put into different categories, larger categories, and then broken down. So I did that for myself because that's who I am. But we're here with the opening. So the lesson with those 4 stories today was that other realms are closer than we think. So the very first story, the Irish story of Tirnanog, this emphasizes just how close the 2 worlds are. These aren't in separate realities, separate beings. They're just lightly covered, different. It's a veil, not a whole different reality. They walk side by side. And in this, they warn him that, yeah, you may think you've only been here for a couple years, but when you're here where time doesn't move the same, things change within us and around us. And they said, do not step on ground, right? Don't feel the full weight of what life is on that side, on the reality side of things. And something I really enjoyed about the story and the lesson of Sheen going in and how Neve is there. Neve warns him of the consequences of going back. And even warning him, she allows him to go back anyways. So she tells him what could happen. What are some consequences? We don't see what they all are, but do not do this, okay? Or you will suffer those consequences. And he goes. I really liked that rather than just stopping him like we do so much today, because we don't want people to get hurt. We don't want people to feel the consequences. So we stop them and we don't allow them to make their own choices or their own mistakes. And it causes a lot more harm than allowing someone to make their own mistakes sometimes. And no, I'm not saying when it comes to hurting others or hurting ourselves, but when we're feeling a longing to go somewhere, that longing to go back to Ireland, sometimes we just have to let people go, because that longing, that thirst will never go away. And it will only harden into resentment for the ones that try to protect them out of love or out of worry or whatever it may be. So I love how this story kind of showcased that. But it also was a huge wake-up call of the other world, whatever it may be, in any of these versions, it does not move the same as a regular world does. And yeah, it's cool to think that as a human, right? As a living human, that the other world is so different and I know so much about it. I don't. But I do enjoy how folklore showcases that whatever it is, it's nothing like it is here. I mean, if we think about it, time was created by, humans essentially, who decided when to start, right? It's crazy that our time thing, our entire time period is centered around one person, regardless of how large the world is or anything. I mean, that's where the time started chronologically, but that's why the other world is so amazing, is because it can't be controlled. It can't even be understood fully, and he didn't understand it fully. And we kind of, as we move into the second one, we've seen Izanami and Izanagi before, and that understanding of the other world, the understanding of Yomi, yet not truly being able to grasp what that is. I think whenever I hear this story, I think about when I kind of guess how things will end up, or here's one way it could end up, here's another way. And we may picture it in our head, but the reality of it, even when it is something we thought of, it's completely different. And we can't fathom it. Even in this story being two deities, we still fail sometimes. We fail in our reactions, we fail in our ability to listen and to have patience and discipline in those promises that we make. And I don't know, this story just kind of also made me think that fear, everyone is afraid, and that the other world, there is some fear within it. We see that in a number of the stories today. And while this story, the fear resulted in it being closed off, that they are two separate places now officially, it closes it off. When you go to story 4, Xibalba, it is a realm of fear, but it's also a realm of trials, of tests. So story 4 and 3 are both about these trials and tests. It isn't just wandering aimlessly or enjoying the views or getting lost in time. The Duat and Xibalba are testing you. I really like how both of these, it doesn't emphasize strength over anything else. Yes, there may be items within there may be challenges or obstacles that could require our strength, whatever it may be, but it emphasizes much more on our character and our knowledge and our wisdom. And something that I really like, I obviously like the story of the Duat. Mark and I, within our book, as you can see here, our depiction of Maat and the feather, we took Snow White into the Duat, into the Egyptian Duat. No, we do understand that Snow White's German, right? That's part of the fun. But going into the Duat, she's trying to redeem herself. She's trying to better understand herself and understand what is worthy of redemption and what isn't. What is judgment and who are we to judge as human beings? And then when faced with danger and help, how are we going to react? How is our resolve going to be? And in story 3, you see that it results in the weighing of your heart. I truly believe, and Mark and I wrote part of this in the book, the weighing of the heart. Yes, I believe that there is some greater judgment out there, but ultimately I do believe it's on us. And our guilt, our regret, I think those are things that actually burden our hearts. They physically weigh us to where we aren't ready to go on. Now, does this result in being eaten by Amit? Who knows? Maybe it does. Maybe if we can't forgive ourselves, the balances won't, or the scale won't ever be balanced. It will never have the opportunity to be balanced. I truly believe that it's not only what we do in the sense of between me and my higher being, but I think it's also how we treat ourselves ultimately. Because whatever we believe in, we matter to whatever it is that's up there, whether it's nature, whether it's the Christian God, whether it's the deities in Xibalba, whether it's the deities in the Dua. We all play our role. And who are we to not love ourselves when something gave us life? That's always been my thought. And yeah, it's easier on my better days to feel that way. But truly, I think of just my parents in this world, right? Who am I to have resentment towards my own life? Who am I to judge myself and not forgive myself when, something created me? I mattered. I do matter, right? And so I think that that's part of the weighing of the heart. Whereas when we go into Xibalba, it's more of like a test of like a game, almost like you could win or lose. As we see the hero twins' father died. He lost. But the hero twins, they win. They survive. They best the cycle itself, showing that even the world of fear can be conquered. And it's not that it's not that they were unafraid. They were definitely afraid. They see all of the things that are meaningful to their culture, all the things they're meant to respect, all the things they're meant to fear, and they're supposed to stand there as equals to everything in there, as something that can overcome and conquer things within there. And I think that's beautiful too. But even with those, it's not all through force. And I love how it also took two to get through there. The father failed, but the twins, they made it through. And so our daily thread for today, April 1st, is that the sea carried a scene where time could not follow. The descent of Izanagi revealed what must remain unseen. The Duat measured truth beyond the surface of life. Xibalba tested those who could perceive beyond illusion. Each realm exists beside this one, not beyond reach. Each threshold opens only under the right conditions. The boundary is not distance, but understanding. And the world is already opening if you know how to see it. I'm just so excited for April. As you can see, we jumped right in to the opening, going into the Fae and Hidden Worlds. And then we get hit at the end. And that's what's so fun about reading four different stories is when you bring them all together, they really showcase that things aren't what we think they are, right? This reality is just what we've kind of accepted it to be. But there's so much that we can't see, and there's so much we're not meant to see. We're not ready to see in whatever form we are in now. And so the reflection question today is, what is trying to open to me? Oh, sorry. So the reflection today is, what world is trying to open to me? So what world is trying to open up to me? Thinking about myself, I think I'm stepping in a whole different direction than I ever really thought I'd be in. My doors are opening kind of away from just giving, 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 giving. I mean, I was a teacher and you put in a lot more hours than you would think. You spend a lot of time worrying about those kids, loving those kids. And then, of course, you have to fight the politics of the education system all the time. But I kind of thought that I would end my career there. I did think I would end my career teaching, and now I just can't even think about going back. Once you step out of that cycle, once you kind of beat that cycle in your head of this is the way life could be, and you see the other possibilities, it's hard to ignore when that world opens up to you. And yeah, I'm doing a lot more stuff than I really was. I'm way more active, way healthier in my mindset and my physical habits. But I think the world that's opening to me right now is a world I truly, truly don't know of yet. And it's the world of creativity and kind of that blossoming. And I don't know, I'm just very excited for it. But with our activity today, we're going to stand briefly in a doorway, remaining still and attentive before crossing through. So we're literally going to stand in the opening and just be very attentive to what we're stepping into, and then go ahead and cross through. And then my final thought for today is that notice where your life already presents thresholds rather than obstacles. Sometimes we see too many options, too many choices as an obstacle, but in all reality, they're just all these thresholds are opening up to us. And it's exciting. And I'm excited to see you guys coming back in tomorrow. But enjoy your April 1st with the opening. See you guys.